Hi all, my name is Maylene Velasquez. I am a licensed clinical social worker, a registered play therapist, and I also specialize in infant and perinatal mental health. I am currently enrolled in a doctorate of social work program, and I'm focusing my research on anti-racist and anti-oppressive practices within mental health. I was hoping that in this video I can share a bit about what I've learned in terms of anti-racist, anti-oppressive practices within the realm of what we think of as cultural humility during the past year and a half. I want to start this video by sharing a little bit about some criticisms when it comes to the practice of cultural competency. Most of us who are mental health professionals have some sort of requirements in terms of becoming culturally competent, whether it was courses that we took at the university level or whether it is courses that are required in order for us to maintain licensure obligations by our boards. The first criticism is that cultural competency courses have a tendency to be very pedagogically focused, which means that we're not really working on understanding our experiences, our values, our belief systems, and the way that those experiences, values, and beliefs affect the clients that we're working with, affect the power dynamics, and affect the relationship, as most of them are focused on providing some education about a specific group and learning how to work with that group. That focus takes us to the second criticism, which says that cultural competency tends to be very othering, where we're learning about Latino culture or Asian culture or Black culture. And we are supposed to, through reading a book or attending a training, become competent on the experience of a group of people. That unfortunately can lead to a lot of prejudices in itself. I know that I've certainly read a lot of prejudicial things in textbooks about the Latino people. And if you're listening to this and you find yourself being the member of a minority group, I imagine that you've also had some similar experiences. The reality is that it is impossible to become competent on somebody else's culture and somebody else's experience. Inevitably, our clients and us, we are the experts in our own culture, in our own experience. So while it is important for us to be educated, it is also important for us to not fall in the realm of making assumptions. This is one of the reasons why I really love the practice of cultural humility. It is the idea of engaging in critical self-awareness and critical self-reflection of our values, experiences, and belief systems, and critiquing those kind of three pieces of us through the lens of what are the experiences that marginalized groups have. How are my experiences impacted through systemic oppression and systemic racism? And how do those experiences then add to power imbalances that could be present in the client-therapist relationship? Inherently, there's always going to be a power dynamic imbalance between the therapist-client relationship, because you have an individual who is providing a service and a person who's receiving that service. So by its nature, therapist-client relationships are not equal. What we do as therapists is that we work on making sure that we are bridging with the client and that we're creating a collaborative relationship to ensure that we're focusing on the goals that the client feels is what's best for them, and that our clients connect to the interventions that we're providing. Cultural humility takes it a step further by really helping the therapist to engage in a consistent process of self-evaluation to address those power dynamics that are going to be present in the client-therapist relationship. The premises is a recognition among providers that some groups have privilege while some other groups don't, or some groups have more privilege than other groups. Without that recognition and that self-critique, it is very easy for us to unconsciously and inadvertently oppress the people that we're serving. A majority of the clients who receive services at community mental health organizations are members of racial and ethnic minorities. I recently came across a study conducted in 2016 where they explored microaggressions that clients have experienced within mental health counseling sessions. Now, this study used a pretty large sample of about 2,000 people, relatively large sample. What they found is that about 80% of all the people that they screened had experienced a microaggression in session. If you're not aware what microaggressions are, they're brief and common everyday messages that are conveyed verbally or behaviorally, sometimes intentional, many times unconsciously and unintentional, that convey a hostile, negative, and derogatory message to the individual simply because they're members of a minority group. An example of this might be a non-Black therapist telling a Black male that if they just stay out of trouble, they'll never be at risk of facing police brutality. Another example might be telling a member of a racial or ethnic minority group that they speak really good English, or that they're not like other members of their racial or ethnic group. Subtle assumptions that reflect our implicit bias, but that if we haven't engaged in that process of critical self-reflection and awareness, it's really easy to miss it. The key here is that there is a huge difference between intention and action. My intention can be to empower and validate that client. However, my action can be very harmful and oppressive. When we're aware of power dynamics and we really reflect on them, critique them, and make space in counseling to process them and to have difficult discussions on race, ethnicity, racism with our clients, we're really working to create a safe space. But before we create that safe space, it's very important that we have to do the work. We have to look at our own biases, our own experiences, the things that we have been exposed to and the things that we have not been exposed to, the fears that we do have and the fears that we're never going to have. If we're a person of color like myself, being aware that I can experience and I have experienced oppression and racism as an immigrant Latina, but that at the same time, because of my privilege, I add to the oppression and racism that Black people experience in the United States. And because of that, I have a responsibility to be aware, remembering that one, privilege is not evil. Something that we're born with that we can't change is not evil. The system reinforces it. Our responsibility is to acknowledge it and to use it for the benefit of the communities that we're living in and the clients that we're providing services to. As we think about this frame into assessing our own beliefs and value system, one of the things that some of my supervisees have shared and that I've seen in some of the groups that I'm a member of is the fear that we're going to make mistakes, or the fear of not wanting to be perceived in a certain way, or not wanting to come across as a racist person or as somebody who is insensitive. The reality is that all of us who are non-Black live in a white supremacist society. And because of that, it is impossible for us to not have racist views and beliefs and experiences, some of which we work to be aware of and some of which we haven't worked yet. So we are going to make mistakes. That is part of being human. It is not an excuse. It is not a cop-out. It is not to say, okay, Maylene, you're going to make mistakes, so never work on your stuff again. It means that the work never stops. It is a lifetime process of growth. Even when we're ending therapeutic services with a client, we would never convey to the client, all right, your work is done. You've done everything that you need to do for your own growth. So good luck with life and being perfect, right? We would never say that, but we so easily do that with ourselves. But when we embrace it, we can really become aware of all these different parts of ourselves, which are vulnerable to look at and are yucky to look at, but that when we do, we can have so much impact in our communities and really work on building authentic relationships with our clients that are going to be long-lasting and that are going to be impactful. Research shows that many racial and ethnic minorities do not complete treatment and have early dropout. What we have done with research is that we have this tendency of blaming the victim, right? And this is the systemic racist piece to academia, right? To mental health, to every system. The reframe here is that we really work on assessing what is it that we are doing as providers that's adding to this early dropout rate. An example of this phenomenon is when we look at Black maternal mortality rates. Traditionally, research recognizes that there is a disparity, and the disparity is that Black women are dying at a rate of up to 5 times higher than white women. So white women are dying too, but Black women are dying at a rate 5 times higher. What we've done traditionally is that we've blamed it on Black women's poor diet choices, drug use. I read a research that talked about vaginal bacteria as a contributor for maternal mortality among Black women. So we've really created a system where we're looking at all these pieces, but we're not really looking at the core of that person's experience and the core of the issue. So yes, we have to think systemically, but the work starts within. And it is possible to do this work from a place of compassion and kindness for ourselves. We would never berate a client for not making progress. We would never guilt them for not doing the work that they need to be doing. And so I hope that with this, that we can turn the eye of self-compassion internally so that we can hold ourselves accountable while at the same time looking at the parts of ourselves that are not going to be perfect, that are gonna mess up. I probably messed up in this video, but that we're going to do the work because we're committed to practicing from a frame of looking at ourselves, of critiquing ourselves, and of shifting with new information. As I mentioned, I'm gonna link some information below. One of the people that I have linked is April Harter, and I just want to give her a big shout out. April Harter was my anti-racist coach. I worked with her for about a year, and she has been the inspiration for this huge shift in how I work, how I treat clients, and how I live in the world. So I definitely recommend that you check out her work because she is amazing. And in case it's not clear from this video, Black Lives Matter. I hope that this was useful and helpful to your practice. If there's anything else that you would like to hear, please feel free to let me know. Thank you.